Alright, let's try this again. Hello, thank you for watching. My voice sounds a little rough today because I got a lot of exercise yesterday, and I'm a lifelong asthmatic. Some of my earliest childhood memories are going from playing to get my asthma medicine. And I remember what that stuff used to taste like still, some of it. This is some thoughts to fellow Mormons. Others, of course, I'm putting this in public on YouTube. Feel free to watch. Fellow Latter-day Saints, let's not overthink things. Of course, I'm not saying let's not think at all. But there are times when fellow Latter-day Saints have embarrassed us. Or said things that didn't make sense because they were overthinking things. When God didn't say why, they were determined to come up with a reason why. And let's start off with the most embarrassing thing that fellow Latter-day Saints have done. Back before 1978, there were a lot of Mormons that mistreated blacks. I don't know what the percentage was, but there was even an apostle who was overthinking things and coming up with this thing that I'm denouncing. Which that apostle did denounce also before he died, but he had already parroted or promoted this one false idea that never was a revelation from God and was just people guessing because they wanted an explanation about why. The thing that people guessed on is they guessed that blacks were neutral in the war in heaven. Really quickly, for those of you who don't know, what I mean by war in heaven is, well, the Bible makes it very clear, but other revelations God has given pile on to this clearness. We existed before we were born on this earth. Our spirit existed. Our spirits lived with Father and Mother in heaven. And when Father in heaven told us about the plan to come to earth and have our big brother Jehovah be a savior to us, there was a counter proposal made by our other brother Lucifer. And there was a war in heaven. We were spirits. So it obviously was not a war in the sense of, modern, earthly, physical wars of tanks, artillery, guns, or old earthly wars of spears and swords. But it's a war of ideas. So that's when some Latter-day Saints made up the idea. Here on the earth they made up the idea that back then, when that was happening, there were neutral people. And how you knew they were neutral? They were born into the black race. But God never said that. And Latter-day Saints who parroted that explanation, that false idea, embarrass us. I'm very embarrassed of those Latter-day Saints who were doing that. What God has told us is that the war in heaven happened. Yes. Prophets were very valiant in that war in heaven. Yes. God did not tell us there were neutrals in that war in heaven. Alrighty. I've got 5 ideas written down here. 2 out of the 5 relate to the word of wisdom. Watch my other video about Mormon lingo if you don't know what the word of wisdom is. And so, the word of wisdom, when it came out, when the Lord revealed it to Joseph Smith, said hot drinks. Later prophets clarified that by revelation from God to mean coffee and tea. Only coffee and tea. This one's less embarrassing than the previous one, but still an example of overthinking things. God said coffee and tea. We should just stop there. Keep it at that. Instead of overthinking it and saying there must be something in the coffee and tea. And I need to figure out what that is and not drink other things that have it. No, the Lord said coffee and tea. That's it. Don't overthink it. You don't need to find out what's in the coffee and tea. And now the conclusion some people have come to when they overthink this is, I need to drink 0 caffeine to be following the word of wisdom. No. He might cause confusion by doing that. He might discourage somebody from looking into the church who might be willing to give up their coffee, but they're not going to give up their coffee and their Coca-Cola and Pepsi. Pepsi tastes worse than Coca-Cola, so they should give up their Pepsi because of that. But that's just my opinion. But they can still be temple worthy while drinking caffeinated Coca-Cola, so it's not the caffeine. Maybe some people who have pushed this thought process were non-Mormons who were asking, hey, why do you guys not drink that stuff? Tell me why? And if you're going to avoid soda for your health, good. I'm not discouraging that. I'm not saying you should drink a lot of Coca-Cola. But the standard of the word of wisdom is coffee and tea. If you're avoiding Coca-Cola, if you're avoiding caffeinated sodas, let's say caffeinated sodas because Coca-Cola is not the only one, and there are caffeine-free versions of Coca-Cola. If you're avoiding caffeinated sodas because it's better for your health, and it probably is, you should explain it to people instead of by saying, because my religion says not to drink it, just it's better for my health. And people should respect that. People usually do respect somebody, as far as I can tell, trying to be good for their health. And let's see. It's alright to... The spirit of the word of wisdom is to generally be good for your health, but you shouldn't declare your conclusions about what is best for your health as what the word of wisdom is. Let everyone come to their own conclusions about it. I have seen a Sunday school class where the teacher used the word of wisdom lesson to promote his own personal kooky belief that everybody should be eating only organic food. That's not what it says. If you think that's better for your health, when you're eating food, when you're buying food, just tell people I prefer organic because I think that's better. Although, like I said, kooky. I'm not convinced that organic only is the best way to go. I'm even more certain, well, I'm not convinced of that. One of the things that was proclaimed in that lesson was that the conspiracies and conspiring men of the last days that the word of wisdom warned about was the farmers spraying things on their crops to kill E. coli. coli will kill you if it gets in you. Or at least if it gets into your stomach. Maybe it's supposed to be in other parts of your body, and maybe it's supposed to be in the colon. But it's not supposed to be in your stomach, and it will literally kill you if it gets in there and you don't get to a doctor. It's something doctors can save you from. But the conspiracies we're supposed to be scared about in the last days and worried about is not the conspiracy to kill a deadly a deadly bacteria. So let's not overthink the word of wisdom to the point where we're thinking that we have to eat organic, or that the conspiracy that we need to be worried about in the last days is people killing deadly bacteria. Wow. Okay. Let's talk about polygamy. I'm not embarrassed at all about the fact that Latter-day Saints engaged in polygamy in the 1800s. Now, if you look back at them, you definitely could find certain individuals who are an embarrassment. There were thousands of people that were doing the polygamy. There were a handful of guys that were jerks. And things like that. But the Lord did not give us a clear explanation about why he was instituting polygamy. In the revelation that he gave Joseph Smith, he did let us know that he did tell some of the Old Testament prophets who we read about doing polygamy to do it. So we can be certain the people denouncing Sarah, Sarai, Abraham's wife, the people denouncing her for giving Hagar to Abraham are wrong. The Lord honored that, and the Lord was pleased with her for doing that. So the Lord let us know that about polygamy. He let us know that polygamy, the point in the Book of Mormon, Jacob chapter 2, lets us know when the Lord is doing polygamy, we're supposed to be trying to get pregnant. The point of polygamy is trying to have, a seed, have kids. Now, that doesn't mean a man or a woman who has fertility problems is going to be sent to hell if they engage in polygamy when the Lord has authorized polygamy. If you have that bad luck and you were trying to get pregnant but you didn't, the Lord doesn't punish anybody for what they could not do. But I've heard a couple of explanations about why from fellow Latter-day Saints that I'm calling out right now. There were lots of men that were dead because of the persecutions. Now, it's a fact that we were persecuted. That's why the church headquarters is not in New York State right now, even though that's where we started. We started in New York, got chased to Ohio and Missouri. Chased out of Ohio, everyone was in Missouri. Chased out of Missouri, it was legal to kill us in Missouri. And what that executive order was still on the books. It hadn't been officially rescinded until the 1970s. Got chased there to Illinois, and then when we were living in Illinois, the Lord's tool in founding us, the man who non-Mormons would call our founder, and I'm not offended by that term, but I would rather let you know that I believe God founded our religion. He was martyred, and we got chased to Utah. Now, in all this persecution, there were men that died. But I don't think there were enough men that died in all this persecution to explain that that's the reason why the Lord had us doing polygamy. I've seen at least one study quoted in a book about polygamy that I bought. That was a study about the ratio of men and women in Nauvoo. Did we need to do polygamy because, wow, there were like no men? And that study showed there was not a dramatic imbalance between men and women in Nauvoo, Illinois at the time. The other explanation that I've heard about polygamy, which is kind of like a sometimes what people say next after saying lots of men were dead from the persecution. We needed to take care of the widows. This explanation makes us look like make our ancestors in the 1800s look like a hyper-sexualized people if we couldn't take care of a widow without having sex with her. You can take care of somebody without having sex with them. When there have been natural disasters, LDS Humanitarian Services came on in with much money that has been donated by Latter-day Saints to the Humanitarian Service Fund to help people, and we did not marry them first before we gave them help. We did not marry them. We did not make a promise of a future marriage to somebody in condition for help. So the Lord did not order us to do polygamy so the widows would be taken care of, because you can take care of a widow. You can donate food, clothing, medicine, housing without having sex with the person. Last but not least, let's not overthink suicide. Now, I'm not saying this to encourage suicide. Don't commit suicide if you're watching this and you're thinking about it. The Lord definitely doesn't want you to. Some people have already committed suicide, so, there have been some Latter-day Saints who have come up with an explanation about it, which they would have claimed to you was well thought out and pure logic, but was a face to the palm kind of moment when you hear them explain it. Some Latter-day Saints have gone through a thought process something like, suicide is killing. Killing is sin. They committed killing without getting a chance to repent. They must be doomed for the celestial kingdom or outer darkness or hell. No, the Lord never said that. The Lord never has given a revelation where He said, these in this kingdom are those who committed suicide. Woe unto him who committed suicide, he shall be thrust down to hell. The Lord never gave a revelation like that. In fact, in a recent general conference, an apostle, M. Russell Ballard, denounced this idea, this false doctrine that if you commit suicide, you're definitely going to the celestial kingdom or outer darkness or hell. M. Russell Ballard pointed out, the Lord hasn't told us, and the Lord will take everything into account when He's judging us. Maybe He will find some cause for mercy. Maybe somebody who committed suicide was going through some kind of a extremely difficult, emotional, or painful time. Maybe they had a mental illness that the Lord will take into account so that He does not hold the suicide against them. So, thank you for watching. Again, let's see. Fellow Latter-day Saints, let's not overthink things and try to come up with explanations about why, about things that God hasn't told us. Especially if it's just a church policy that has an extremely vague and fuzzy start, which is what the policy about the blacks and the priesthood was. It's extremely vague and fuzzy start. We don't have a revelation where God told us, "Thus saith the Lord, thou shalt not ordain men to the priesthood of who are the seed of Cain or from Africa or something." So it's got a very vague start. It was a church policy for many years, but the Lord gave no revelation that's been recorded starting it off. And when it was a church policy, prophets were asked why, and so said, "The Lord hasn't told us." So we shouldn't try to help the Lord, because we've embarrassed ourselves sometimes by coming up with explanations about why about things. Thank you for watching. You have a good day.